Manchester United can't sell players, and it isn't just bad luck. The club is stuck with underperforming, overpaid players, and it is a mess of their own making. Overinflated transfer fees, high wages, a constant turnover of managers, and of course poor squad planning has completely wrecked resale value on Manchester United's team. We all know that Manchester United need to start selling some players in order to be able to afford to buy more this summer, and it's just not happening. Too many players are stuck in the squad at Manchester United. So let's have a look at exactly what has led to this point and how Manchester United can get out of this absolute mess when it comes to getting rid of players. The first place to start with all of this is the Glazers and their absolute chaos in the market. And it's not just the last couple of years. This is something that has built and built and built over more than a decade, particularly starting after Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United. Just focusing on hype over an actual vision for a squad, Manchester United have signed the likes of Angel Di Maria, Romelu Lukaku, Cristiano Ronaldo, Fred at £52 million, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Rasmus Højlund, Anthony, Jadon Sancho, all of which will either leave for a loss or will leave for free. It has been an absolutely disastrous decade of transfer recruitment by Manchester United. Just some of the names I've mentioned there are some of the biggest transfer fees ever paid for players in football history, and none of them were massive successes at Manchester United. Paul Pogba, a name I didn't even mention. United signed him for £90 million and let him leave for free, despite the fact that we all knew he wanted to leave before that. We could have made money on him a year or 2 years earlier than we did, which could have set us up for the next 3 or 4 seasons, and instead he walks out the door for £0. And it is a story as old as time, but why are all these players leaving for free? Why are they leaving for losses? It can't just be the case that we didn't know how to sell them. Well, this is all set up by a few core problems at Manchester United. Wages is absolutely crucial in all of this, and it literally sets managers and it sets players and it sets the transfer team up for failure. Let's look at wages and let's look at our current squad. These are just players who either are coming to the end of their time at Manchester United or literally need to be sold this summer. The likes of Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Casemiro and Luke Shaw are all on £200,000 or more. And in the case of Casemiro and Rashford, it is over £300,000 per week that they are both on. And the thing is, you can't blame them as individuals. If someone comes to you and offers you 325 grand a week, you're going to take it. But then when Manchester United are offering it to the wrong players or at the wrong time, it bites us in the arse. And where did this all start? Well, a big part of this, funnily enough, was the deal for Alexis Sanchez. It may seem like a long time ago and it may seem irrelevant, but let me tell you why Alexis Sanchez is such a big deal. Because when we signed him, he came in on a reported £375,000 per week at Man United, absolutely blowing out of the water the rest of the squad. And look, at that time, the next highest person was Paul Pogba, David De Gea, Henrik Mkhitaryan and Lukaku, all on around £200,000 per week. Then you've got Sanchez coming in at above 350 with add-ons and with bonuses. That is such a massive thing, such an obviously situation-breaking transfer to do, that I cannot believe it was ever allowed to happen. Now, one of the reasons that it did happen is because technically it was a free transfer. I think United put it down as 30 million for him and we got 30 million for Mkhitaryan. But in terms of how it worked on the books and how Manchester United actually kind of handled the deal, it was essentially on a free. United swapped him for Mkhitaryan. And that allowed Sanchez to get more in the negotiating room. Manchester United and Ed Woodward didn't really know what they were doing. They wanted to get in what had been one of the best players in the Premier League from Arsenal, and they wanted to push for that title. And they were so desperate to do so that they completely broke the wage structure at Manchester United, almost doubling the next highest earner's wage. That cannot be allowed to happen at any level in any organisation. You've got two people doing the same job, one of them is earning double what the other one is when they've only just arrived. That cannot happen. And of course, because of that, everyone else can walk into the negotiating room and say, well, we want a piece of that. We want to double our wages. If he's on 350 grand, 375 grand a week, then we want to be close to that. You look at David De Gea, this is another big moment. He went from being on around 190 grand a week to being on 375 grand a week. He was winning Player of the Year season after season. And why wouldn't he be one of the highest earners at the club? He's one of our best players, one of our most consistent players. And all of a sudden you've got a goalkeeper that is now the most highly paid player in his position of all time in David De Gea. That amount that we paid him was exorbitant. Paul Pogba goes up to 290. Martial goes up to 250 grand a week. This is all within 18 months of signing Alexis Sanchez. Because now when there's a renewal up for grabs, well, look at Sanchez. He's on 350. Surely me, who actually, let's be honest, is playing better than him, should be at least on 250, at least on 300. I won't go for 375. I won't go for 350. But surely I can get 290. And that's exactly what people did. Paul Pogba did the exact same thing that I'm talking about there. And it makes sense. And this is why when people say the wage structure was broken, it's because it allows, and not just allows, but it basically ensures that things like this will happen. There's going to be a creep up underneath that highest earner. And United just let it happen. And this all came to a head in 2021-22. And again, we said before about how United had finished second and wanted to push for the title. We did the same thing under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And to do that, we went berserk. We brought in Cristiano Ronaldo on 515 grand a week. David De Gea, of course, still on that 375 a week contract. We brought in Rafael Varane on over 300 grand. Paul Pogba, again, up near 300 grand himself. We got Edinson Cavani the season before for £250,000 per week. At that stage, Manchester United had 9 players earning over 200 grand a week, 5 of whom were on either around 300 grand or more. The wages per week had gone just 2 seasons earlier from under 3 million a week to £4.5 million per week. This was kind of the culmination of 4 years of terrible planning. And it meant that some of those players on that list are still the problem players now. Jadon Sancho is on that list. Marcus Rashford and Luke Shaw are on that list as well, all of whom had been given pay rises or come in on huge wages after those Sanchez and Ronaldo deals had happened. This is why these things affect you long term, and setting a structure is so important, because we're 6 years on from that deal. Sanchez has left the club and it is still being felt every single day at Manchester United. So then Ed Woodward leaves the club in 2022 and we get this new team. We get Murtagh, we get Arnold heading things up. Then there's also Tom Keane, who is one of the negotiators for the deals behind the scenes. And that is the summer that we signed Casemiro for £70 million, Antony for £86 million, Lisandro Martinez for £56 million, and Tyrell Malacia for £13 million. Now, I think you would maybe say Martinez has been a success, a true success, but again, there's been a lot of injuries there. Casemiro has had his ups and downs. Antony has been one of the poorest financial decisions that Man United have ever made in the transfer market. And this all came because of that bad planning that we've spoken about. United targeted Frenkie de Jong for too long. We didn't know who Ten Hag wanted. All of these guys had come in the same summer, which means that they didn't have the synergy between them as staff members, that they hadn't met Ten Hag properly, they didn't know his wishes properly, and we end up getting dragged out all summer and signing players for inflated fees last thing. We don't need to go over the Antony fee. We all know we could have signed him for 50 million less if it had been earlier in the summer. That's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And when we talk about planning, when we talk about being sensible, when we talk about players becoming these sort of unmovable assets, spending £86 million on someone is an absolute mess. There's almost no chance you make that money back. And for him to be worth that money, he has to be one of the best players in the world, which was something that was never indicated from his time at Ajax. He looked like a good player, a technical player, someone that could work under Ten Hag's system. But €90 million, £86 million, is as big as you can spend on anyone, really. It's absolutely ludicrous. And this is where INEOS come in. Because after Murtagh and Arnold and Keane, we have seen them come in and completely revolutionise the footballing side. We still kind of don't know exactly how good they are at this. There's been some goods, there's been some bad, there's been some successes and some failures, and there's been a lot of money saving. Whether that be 450 redundancies, which for me is just too much. And it almost feels like they decided before they arrived, we're going to cut 25% of staff, and it doesn't really matter whether they're valuable or not, or whether it be ticket prices going up or wage caps for the players. We don't really know exactly how this will affect Manchester United long term. I do think if we stick to the playing side of things, getting rid of some of those big earners, the likes of Christian Eriksen, who was on big money, trying now to get rid of Rashford, Sancho, people who are on a lot of money at Manchester United, it makes sense. Because if you look at the squad now, let's say we do manage to get rid of Rashford and Sancho, and again, we'll get into why that's so difficult. Because if we can get rid of them, you've only got Casemiro and Bruno over 300 grand a week. And obviously Bruno is our captain, best player. You could probably say he deserves it. After Casemiro, though, you've kind of got this band of players where your top big earners are on 200 to 250 grand a week, and everyone else is below that. You don't have these outliers who are getting more than £1 million a month at Manchester United and substantially more at that. Everything will have been brought down to a more manageable level. Look at the likes of Antony this summer. Yes, we're going to lose a lot of money on him, but there's genuine interest in clubs who can afford to pay him once he gets there. Compare that to Jadon Sancho, someone who Napoli want him, Juve want him, Chelsea were keen. But to get him, he's going to have to drop 2/3 of his wages to be paid at a level that reflects his performances. That's just not going to happen. And you can't really blame Sancho for not wanting to do that. So what's next for Manchester United? Well, there's a few things. We can't get turned over in this transfer window. We can't make the same mistakes again. And yes, it's slightly infuriating that we signed Cunha basically the first day of the window, and it's been over a month since we've signed anyone else. But we have to get these players right. Because one bad deal like Sanchez, one bad window like the Antony, Casemiro, Malacia and Martinez window, that can have reverberations for years and years to come. Everything has to be right and has to be sensible. And if it means occasionally missing out on a Gyökeres because Arsenal have got to him before we were able to sell the players needed, then so be it. This summer and these next couple of summers are about so much more than just one individual player. It's about making Man United an organisation and a football team that can bring in players they want for fees that make sense and sell players that they want for fees that make sense. We have to do things the right way. And once you do, things start falling into place a little bit more. Even if you make a mistake on a transfer, you can get probably just about what you paid for him back. Look at Chelsea. They bring in a player, plays 15 games for him, looks all right, they sell him for what they got him for. It makes so much more sense once you have that structure in place that works properly. So this window, we may have to cut our losses on certain players. The likes of Sancho and Rashford may have to go for a bit less than they're worth because, again, it resets this culture at Manchester United. We may have to go for slightly younger players, more affordable because they haven't hit those heights yet, but also have more resale value as time goes on. That list of players that we saw before when our wage bill was at its highest, Ronaldo, De Gea, Varane, Pogba, Cavani, all on 250 grand or above, they're all over 28. Most of them are over 30. That can't be the case anymore where you have these big players who you couldn't possibly sell if you dreamed of it. So that's why we can't sell players, because the wages are too big, the transfer fees were too high, and the people doing it aren't even here to clear up the mess anymore. So come up with a plan that can actually transcend staff and managers at Manchester United so that every time someone goes through the door, we don't have to start from zero again. And we might actually be able to be successful across periods of time rather than these trophy here, trophy there, a 15th place finish here and a second place there. United need to be up near the top and challenging. And weirdly, I know it's, Sancho and Rashford may not seem like the problem in all of that, but this is a huge starting point for United to be able to get back up there. Because with the way we've been doing things for the last 15 years or 10 years in particular, it was literally impossible for us to do that. We could never have sustained that even if we got there. Let's say United won the league when Ronaldo was here. He was 37. He leaves the season after and you have to start again. We have to do things the right way, and we don't know yet. I'm not going to sit here and say, aren't INEOS great? They've fixed everything. But it does feel as though I can see what they're doing and why they're doing it. Unfortunately, we might have to wait toward the end of the window this summer to get those signings that we need. And it might be one more window where you go, this didn't really work out. Maybe there's something. But these things are more important than just this window. Sorting out the structure, fixing Manchester United will go on a lot longer than this window. So we have to be patient, and hopefully we can get rid of those players that have been here simply too long. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you in a bit.